you look at the absence of religion, like the erosion of God and religion in the
Right.
lives of Americans. And I mean, this can be said about whites, blacks. I don't know if you could say it about Hispanics. I feel like the Hispanic community has stayed more religious, but in any event, you could definitely say about whites and blacks. And that explains a lot. I mean, honestly, like I did not realize that was a fundamental principle that was pushed by guys like Alinsky and so on. I mean, Marxism, yes, I get that religion's opiate of the masses, and he wasn't a big fan. But you really lay out how that belief, that Marxist belief, was used against us. And that, you know, when you see thugs on the street corner, white or black, 9 times out of 10, they don't have religion in their life. And those guys used to be going to church with their families. And now, because of an agenda that's been pushed on them by design, they've lost that tether. So who was pushing it by design? Like how? How did people break up the nuclear family, get religion out of the public square, distance us from our churches?
Well, as Uncle Tom too establishes, this took place very gradually over a period of 100 years, where little by little, communists, socialists, collectivists began to infiltrate themselves into the black struggle, and even MLK. MLK was somebody who wanted to redistribute income. He even said that there should be some sort of Marshall Plan after the Civil Rights Movement. Really? And who should be paying for the Marshall Plan? Slavery was primarily a Democratic institute. It was Democrats who owned slaves. Only a handful of slave owners were Republican. Why should they pay for all of this? Beyond that, government didn't own slaves. Individuals owned slaves. So the idea that somehow people who had nothing whatever to do with slavery owe some sort of debt to black people is something that would have appalled Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington wrote a book called Up from Slavery. This was a man who was born a slave. He wrote a book in 1901, a mere 36 years after slavery. If you read the book, Megyn, he is more optimistic about the future for black people than people like Ibram X. Kendi and Patrisse Cullors and talk show hosts on MSNBC are right now. And he said, if you learn how to do something well, if a Negro boy learns to cook, to sew, to wash dishes, to practice medicine as well as or better than somebody else, he or she will be rewarded without regard of color. He called that a great human principle. And he was demeaned by W.B. Du Bois, the face man of the NAACP, who became a communist, was an atheist, was born wealthy, a free man, and attended Harvard. Are there parallels here today? Absolutely. You go to these elite schools, and W.B. Du Bois was an anti-capitalist. And as I mentioned, entrepreneurship was the foundation of the black struggle coming out of slavery, to the point where a lot of black people went to Harlem, bought buildings, and were displacing white people. And the white people were complaining about black gentrification. And the whole point is that black people still moved ahead. One of the other things that we exposed in Uncle Tom too is the myth of the Tulsa so-called massacre in 1921. We're unclear how many people were killed. There was a race riot, to be sure, but the shorthand is that a bunch of white people burned down Black Wall Street. Well, Tulsa was completely rebuilt within a few years, and the term Black Wall Street didn't become a popular term until after it was rebuilt. There's a commercial that I saw last year during the Super Bowl, a Citigroup commercial where a black guy is talking about how in 1921, a bunch of white racists burned down Black Wall Street. What he didn't say was that this area of Tulsa was completely rebuilt within a few years, and the term Black Wall Street was not even popular until after it was rebuilt. The bottom line is, the shorthand notion is that black people were doing okay until a bunch of white people decided to trash their success, and then down to the ghetto black people went. It is completely false. It is insulting to the hard work that men and women put in after slavery.
Carol Swain, who we both love, she's been on the show, one of my favorite interviews. She's in the piece, and she talked about that sort of the absence of religion as it receded from many populations, including the black population, and talked about the slavery situation, like blacks coming out of slavery. To me, this is interesting, and I'm going to play the soundbite. But it reminded me of what happened to Brett Weinstein on the campus of Evergreen when he was getting screamed at, this professor who did nothing wrong, but the mob came for him. And one of the students was yelling at him, like, I come from slaves. You don't understand anything. I come from slaves. As though this woman, yesterday emerged from slavery. And Carol Swain kind of gets there. Here she is in SOT 20.
If you look at the blacks that came out of slavery, they were relatively prosperous, and you did not have the dysfunction and crime that you see taking place today. Black people are constantly being told that because of slavery, because of systemic racism, that their anger and their bitterness and their rage is justified.
Is it possible that as Black people, we are experiencing a PTSD from what they went through 401 years ago?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because we didn't experience it, us learning about the history or even from family stories, it's the same thing.
That does not make a lot of sense given that Blacks coming out of slavery had lives that were more functional. The functionality of Black lives at the turn of the century was because Blacks were deeply religious people. They adhered to strong Judeo-Christian values and principles. And to the extent that they get further and further away from those principles, I think that you see more dysfunction in Black communities because they've lost the anchor.
And it was systematically undone. Uncle Tom, too, makes the argument that it wasn't an organic distancing from God, from religion, that it was systematically undone, and it's still being systematically undone to this day.
Absolutely. And, coming out of slavery, of course, 90% of Blacks were slaves, and they were illiterate. Within a relatively short period of time, the majority of them were literate. Today, 85% of Black eighth graders, according to the National Report Card, can neither read nor write at grade level proficiency. A substantial number of Black 13-year-olds are functionally illiterate. I would argue a greater percentage are functionally illiterate today than decades after slavery. How can that be? How can that be in an era where we're spending more money than ever before, K through 12, more money than almost any industrialized country except for Luxembourg and Switzerland, I think, that 85% of Black eighth graders do not read and do math at grade levels of proficiency. It's an outrage, and it's because of the welfare state, because of the way the leftists have taken over education. And we have this kind of, as Carol Swain puts it, dysfunction. And the beauty is that left-wing people, whether it's Mayor Pete or Joe Biden or Beto O'Rourke, will blame this on endemic, systemic, choose your favorite adjective, racism, when in fact, it's because of policies that have destroyed the family, that have deterred people from Judeo-Christian values, that deterred them from entrepreneurship and a belief in American values. You look at speeches of Frederick Douglass, they were replete with praise of American values, even though those values were not applied to Black people. And now to wave the flag makes you some sort of sellout. People like Colin Kaepernick are praised for kneeling, and all of these things, patriotism, Judeo-Christian values, entrepreneurship, and family are the reasons Black people, as I said before, were able to continue to move forward in the face of obstacles that are far, far more insidious than the ones Black people face today.
There is a growing sense of instability and uncertainty in America these days. The price of everything seems to be way up. Food prices, especially, have the nation reeling. But what if you could grow your own food? More and more people are doing this. Let me introduce you to ARC Seed Kits. If you're sitting there thinking, I don't know where to begin, this is where you begin. ARC Seed Kits is a family-owned and operated business providing heirloom seeds for over 13 years now. ARC Seeds wants to get heirloom seeds into every home in America. 99% of seeds sold today do not have the ability to reproduce. Only heirloom seeds can be harvested and regrown year after year. ARC's desire to equip every home in America with the ability to grow and harvest its own food led it to create the all-in-one seed kit. It's designed to grow calorie-dense vegetables and fruits to sustain any home at any time. This is so cool. You're even going to get a seed guide that will give you everything you need to know about growing and harvesting every variety included in the kit. For a limited time, we've partnered with ARC to offer a 10% discount code as well. So if you go to arcseedkits.com and enter MK Seeds, you will get your 10% discount code and be on your way to food and economic security, helping you, your family, and your community. Visit arcseedkits.com to order your seed kits today. Use that code MK Seeds to get your discount. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.